What's happening, y'all? This is Todd Wilson with another episode of Elevate Your Game. Today, we have the founder, CEO, director, probably does everything in the business of BTI, former head coach, former everything in basketball probably at this point. Been doing it
Been
for
doing a little bit.
25 years plus.
Yep.
Mr. Robert Icart, welcome to
Yeah,
the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely, man. It's a blessing to have one of the OGs. You're an OG in this game on the show, man. I always feel like it's extra special to get someone who's been doing it for so long to
Yeah.
give us the wisdom. So we love to start this
thank
off with the wall of hoop movies. Your favorite hoop movie of all time and why?
Ooh, man. I got to go with He Got Game. Denzel was always my favorite actor. When I was young, I used to watch all his movies, study the mannerisms, his little pickup lines, and I would try to use those on the playground with the honeys back in 8th, 9th grade. So I got to give my shout out. And then I ended up coaching Denzel's son, Malcolm, on our
Crazy.
2009 team. So it was kind of cool to have him back
Man.
sitting on the bench sometimes. And so I got to go with He Got Game.
No, absolutely, man. That's I think it's the number one voted movie at this point for everybody who's coming to the studio. It's very
Yeah.
impactful for our generation.
Oh, yeah.
I think every kid should watch it once they turn about 13. I don't know. We should have been watching it before.
Right,
but,
right.
great movie. Denzel made that movie because Ray Allen came in there. He did a good job, but he wasn't a real actor.
Right,
So,
nah.
but the hoop was there. So
Absolutely.
always a great movie. So for you, when did you fall in love with basketball?
Boy, I fell in love with basketball in high school, but I was actually a better baseball player.
Okay.
So I went to play at Concordia Irvine, went to play college baseball, but my high school program was run by a guy, Mike Miller, who was a really successful high school coach in the 90s and one of the top junior college coaches in the country. He ended up coaching at LA City College. And so I played for him in high school, and I was on the team that won a state title at Rebay Academy back in '91 in that little era. And Mike was probably the most detail-oriented coach that I've seen in like 30, 35 years. He was just, him and Rick Majerus were the most detail-oriented guys I've seen, and he was intense and just, I mean, he couldn't do stuff that he did back then. It was just too.
Guys, intense
he was too
in
crazy.
multiple ways.
Oh yeah. So so I was able to, fortunately, play college baseball, and then while I was playing college baseball, I was coaching youth basketball because I love the game of basketball more, but baseball provided me an opportunity to go to college for free and get a scholarship. So I would coach Parks and Rec, and then in '93. 94, I went to see Muir High School play, and they were playing at the Brent Center. And Jock Fon was the point guard on the Muir team. At that time, Muir was a top-level program, in Southern California. It was a nationally ranked program, not quite now as it was back then. And I went and watched them play, and I saw the way they just got after it, their culture, the chemistry, and I was like, I got to be part of that program. And it's from my area. I was, pretty much raised in Pasadena. So I met with the coach, and he was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to try you out. I like your energy. I like your personality. I was 21 years old at the time, and he was like, I'm going to have you work out with my JV and varsity team, and let me see what you can do. And he let me have the team the whole summer. I had a really good week of practice with him. And he was like, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to turn the team over to you. I mean, it was crazy.
Man.
So he gave me a lot of responsibility early. But he was still on top of me in terms of teaching. He was a purist fundamentalist. So Bill Rocky Moore was the coach at Muir at that time. Excellent coach, too. And I learned so much from him. But he gave me a lot of autonomy and opportunity to grow.
That's awesome.
And we won 2 CIFs during that stretch, state semifinalist. Once I concluded that, I coached a year at Orange Coast Junior College. There was an NBA coach named Herb Livesey that was also working at Orange Coast, and I took a year there to just learn and study under someone different that was also a purist fundamentalist. And then I started getting involved with AAU, and that's when I was trying to decide what I was going to do. And now I got my degree. I was involved with the Pumps. The Pumps were like, hey, you should go with Ben Howland in Northern Arizona. That time Ben was at Northern Arizona. Then I met with Rich Goldberg, and Rich was like, hey, I think you got a future in this. And Rich at that time, Rich and Izzy Washington were basically the founders of AAU basketball in Southern Cal. I mean, if anybody goes back in time, they'll know that was, Rich was in the Valley, pretty much Izzy was in the hood. I'm not saying the hood, but he took the low economic areas and provided amazing opportunities for those guys in the South Bay area, Carson, Long Beach. So between those two, icons of grassroots basketball, I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, and they both inspired me to just be in the grassroots AAU side. And so I got involved with Rich Goldberg. He gave me the high school top team in year one, which had Luke Walton, Casey Jacobson. I mean, Gilbert Arenas was coming up. Gilbert Arenas was in the next class.
How old were you at this point now?
22, turning 23. So I was young.
Man,
so
you were given the keys.
I was young.
But you knew your stuff. What?
Yeah.
Let me ask this. So it seems like to play baseball, you have to have discipline because it's boring out on the baseball field.
Yeah.
I see it all the time. But
yeah.
And the attention to detail is even more important probably than basketball. Less room for error on the baseball field. So you have these attributes of somebody. First, you have some good mentors, right, for coaches and bringing you in, and that attention to detail and the discipline. Where did you get that from? Was that bred in you and how you were raised, or where did that come from? Exactly?
Yeah, I think my mom was because I was, pretty much raised by my mom, and she was always big on educating yourself outside of just a learning environment that's structured. And so when I got my first credit card at I think I was 22-ish or something like that, I spent about $1,000 of that, probably about 50% of that, of what I had on that card on basketball videos and books. Wow. So at that time it was VHS. There was no DVDs or no YouTube.
Better basketball, huh?
Better basketball. Yep. I would invest in guys. I mean, I thought Rick Majerus was the best mind in college basketball, in basketball ever. I still think he's the best mind in basketball. But I would buy his books and videos and, Roy Williams to, you name it, all the best guys, Bobby Knight, Bob Huggins, the list goes on and on. So I had stacks of VHS and books, and I would just be up till late at night, man, studying it, just like you tell guys to get in the gym and work on their craft. That's what I was doing. I was just trying to stack knowledge, and just have this plethora of depth and that I could offer to my players. And at that time, there was really there wasn't as many skill trainers at that time. It was pretty much tennis and baseball when you're talking about, 1995. And so Rich was like, hey, you can direct the ARC teams, and then you can create a program that will help you monetize and develop the players because you have a great niche for skill development. And now you can take those players from ARC, which he had 2,500 players, and create an institute that would allow you to train them in a structured environment. So I was like, man, that's pretty good. So then I created BTI.
Basketball Training Institute.
Basketball Training Institute, and that's all it was initially. There was no teams. The teams were under ARC, and there was a ton of ARC teams, so my teams were ARC, BTI, to kind of differentiate myself from some of the other ARC teams. But we started we had a guard clinic that was in North Hollywood Girls Gym in 95, 96, and I used to work Gil out in that. Gil was amazing. But we would have a ton of really good guards from, all over Southern California, and we'd do those every night. We had a no-dribble league, so I used to do a no-dribble basketball league, and so, which was, because I'm big on the ball being electric and the ball moving, so we would play a live officiated 6-week league where you weren't allowed to dribble. So
none?
Can't bounce it at all.
Even getting past half court or not even?
Not at all. And
I'm bringing this to core.
Oh man,
I love this.
It was so we had very specific rules. So the ball had to be advanced through the front court in 8 seconds. There's 4 seconds on the ball. So if now you're playing with pressure because now guys are getting up in you. So you got 4 seconds, turnover. So guys had to catch it, pass, cut, screen. So they had to move quick. They had to communicate. So it was almost like soccer. It became strategic. So the first week or 2 weeks, it was like 100 turnovers. The play was ugly.
The score was 4-2.
Yeah, like nobody could
Like
score.
basketball first started, yeah.
Oh man! And then by week 3 and 4, you saw progression. By week 5 and 6, we were scoring like 100 points. It was because the ball's too fast.
Yeah.
So guys couldn't handle all the cuts and screens, and guys were now faking screens and cutting to the rim, and it improved vision, like you saw with players. It improved vision because now they got to catch and see,
Yeah.
which a lot of players don't now. They catch and dribble, so they're not seeing the whole floor. So that was probably one of the more creative leagues or developmental skill programs that we did. And then I used to drive around and do private lessons. I mean, I was pretty much 70 hours a week.
Yeah.
Going to high school practices, going to college practices. I mean, I was 14 hours a day, just basketball. That was it.
The word that comes to mind is obsessed.
Oh yeah.
How does one become obsessed with something? Like you said you played baseball in college. Basketball always intrigued you.
Yep.
You became obsessed with learning and then
Yeah.
developing. Where does that obsession come from?
I think it's just my culture, man. My family's from Haiti. We're passionate people. I mean, whether we're eating a plate of food or salsa dancing, whatever it is, we're passionate. So I love the game. So I was like, I'm so in love with this game. I just want to do it 24/7. But the thing was, I moved past passion and got into discipline, and that's where some of the other guys in the industry couldn't. And so then I had to now learn, okay, how can I teach strategically? Not just use my passion out there and yell at guys to play hard, but can I be strategic? Can I be an educational program that will allow guys to develop skills with life after basketball? And so that's where we started to attract a different type of kid and then create a business model for our teams that would be sustainable. Because everybody wanted the next, Kevin Garnett or, whatever, superstar, NBA superstar. And I was like, you know what, we could still have success with getting kids that have my passion, that have my values with education, but have discipline and work ethic and care about their academics. And now we can go out there and beat teams and have success and put guys into 4-year colleges.
Man, that's awesome. What I like about your story is that Rich not only gave you the keys, he gave you hey, you have this skill and allowed you to do it within his system. It wasn't, he wasn't tripping off of you, stealing his idea and what he had or nothing, right?
Nah.
So
Definitely.
how do you do that now? How do you implement that into what you do now? And, were you surprised by that at the time?
I was surprised because I was so young, but, Rich was, at that time, he was one of the top, AAU grassroots icons at that time. And, he gave me that team, and I was like, man, I just better not mess this up because I got Luke Walton, who's probably the smartest player that I've ever coached. There's a kid, Nick Camino, we have now that I think is on par with Luke, but in cerebrally, but phenomenal. And then Casey was just an amazing scorer. We had Luke's best friend, so Dave Abramowitz, who went to San Diego State, a really good point guard. So we were beating teams. We were playing at a really high level. And that was a high IQ basketball team, and that's what made me realize that this is the personality that I want to have for BTI. The identity is really good players, but guys that can think the game and have tremendous basketball IQ, and I wanted to put that out front because you're always seeing people getting dunked on and handling the ball.
And one mixtape.
Yeah. And so I see the game a little differently, and so yeah, Rich gave me a great opportunity, and I just didn't want to screw it up. But Rich was very unselfish with his approach, and that's what I've taken as well. I try to get really good coaches in my program. If someone, participates on a BTI team, we expect them to get a quality, basketball coach. 6 of them right now are college coaches, so we have a lot of college coaches that are recruited on our staff. A lot of them are excellent high school coaches, and some of them are just, they don't, like Mike Teller, my assistant director, he's not affiliated with a high school, but he's just an excellent basketball coach. And he studied the game and learned it and has coached for many years at AAU, and so he's really good at, being able to put a team together and put them out on the floor in 3 or 4 weeks and get them to function unselfishly and with purpose and while highlighting individuals.
Right.
You know, which is a hard thing to be able to do.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. It sounds like one of the first training programs, right, where it was focused on
Yeah.
development. How
Yeah.
have you seen that change as far as what you taught and developed then versus what's developed now with training?
Well, my approach to training was always a little different than like what some of the other guys did. So if I got a client, I said, all right, he goes to locking out of high school. They're running motion offense. So 8 dribble moves ain't gonna translate in that system, right? So I was like, all right, half of the workout has to be related to him having success in his high school program. I need to now communicate with that high school coach. Hey, what does Jonathan need to work on? How can I help you and how can I help him so that he can be more effective in his high school program? Now, that's 50% of it. The other 50%, I was like, all right, we got to help you develop into a college level program. So you may not handle the ball at all at La Cañada, but we'll also do some things, to improve your skill level long term so that you could be a combo guard at the next level, or be a functional ball handling guard.
Yeah.
So I always kind of tried to take that approach, which was a little different than a lot of guys. They had kind of their system of, skill work. And then I've tried to study the college game as much as possible. I used to watch games over and over again and try to write down and take notes on how guys score at that level, because I think college is the best way to study the game personally. I think it's the highest level and it's still team oriented. Where I think the NBA is, it's team oriented, but it's different. It's different. You got superstars and
It's a little individualized because of the marketing perspective from it.
It's entertainment. So I studied the college game and studied patterns. Okay, guys have to know how to come off a down screen and curl. Guys have to utilize a shot fake and create separation off of one dribble. So we would do drills that we felt like in the curriculum would allow guys to develop real, like, practical transferable skills for the next level. Things that could really relate in the flow of a team versus just, hey, you got to do your thing and make a play and beat your guy and get to the rim. I was always team oriented and my favorite player was Magic Johnson. So I was always trying to instill unselfishness in my players and vision. And so that's why we kind of created a BTI system that we felt was effective and would allow guys to develop skills that were practical and would allow them to get into college. And I think that's why we've had some success with some of our guys being really coachable and then developing practical skills that were at the next level. They would say, hey, he's really, really good at these 3 things. We're going to offer him, or we're going to go on him.
There you go. Great.
Yeah.
And that I think is so important. I think a lot of trainers miss the mark on that today. Is like they have their system. They're not talking to the high school coach. They're not communicating with the AAU coach. They're just doing what made them good. Because that's what I used to do. It's like, hey, this is what I did in college. Just do what I do. And that's how I started. And then I started realizing, hey, I'm not getting playing time. Oh, well, what is your coach telling you to do? Like, that's how you get playing time.
Right.
You got to go, you got to play the 4 and you're 6'3"?
Right.
Go play the 4. You're going to be on the court.
Right.
Let's work on your rebounding, your defensive skills, and, setting screens or whatever it is. And so I think it's extremely important. I just came from a core workout. And me and Coach Brandon, we were just talking about how my skill stuff, the way it progresses, gets you really skilled really fast. And he's like, I hope they don't think that their primary option is to shoot it, because when you do skill work, you're normally shooting most of the time. I said, no, but that's the toughest thing to do. I said, I'm teaching them the toughest thing to do. And then if they go to a high school coach, we're going to teach them as well. But the high school coach gets to have someone who can do anything, but you still have to teach the game after that. Like there's a continue because we only work with middle school. There's split between skill work. And then Coach Brandon comes in and, hey, how do you apply this to the game? What's the reads you're making? And we do that. But that education, it keeps going. I think sometimes coaches in high school now, like, I got a ready-made player. He's good. He was good in middle school. Like, no, you still have to teach them basketball. And then you got to learn it again in college. You have to keep on teaching the game. So.
Absolutely, man. That's well said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when did you go into your own business? You were a part of ARC with the, had some ARC teams, and what was that
Yeah.
transition like? You got to coach that high level ARC team. What was
Yeah.
that like? First off, like
That
you're
was
coaching future
amazing.
pros,
Yeah.
and
Well,
the tournaments you go to. Do you remember those tournaments
oh
and coaching
yeah.
those events?
Yeah, Las Vegas big time, and I mean the tournaments were so much smaller, so the talent level was concentrated. So you're walking into a gym, and I still remember, the first tournament playing in, and I'm seeing Kevin Garnett, one of the first ones, and he's just, dunking on people. He's knocking the ball into the other court. I mean, he was ferocious. And I remember going into that setting like, man, this is so different than high school. It's way different now, but there was, less teams and concentrated. So even the 10th guy was on your roster could be a WCC or Pac-12 guy, the 9th, 10th guy. I mean, Steve Kerr was on Rich's third team, and he's playing, one of the greatest shooters of all time. That's how loaded that organization was and the talent level was across the country. But now there's like 1,000 AAU teams versus back then where there was, you had 4 or 5 in every state that were relevant and strong.
Literally 1,000 in Southern California. Literally.
It seems like it. Yeah, yeah. And I'm not mad. People want to create something that could bring value. That was the one thing. There was a guy, Bob Gottlieb, who had Branch West, and people used to always kind of be like, he's a money guy. He just wants to. And I was like, as I started to develop a relationship with him, I'm like, he charges a fee, but he provides a unique service. And at that time, he would get on the horn and call every school on the globe. I mean, he'll find a school in the middle of like the Middle East somewhere and get you a scholarship. So I'm like, you know what? He provided a great service, and he's going to grind for your kid and support your kid and advocate for him. So I learned a lot from Bob Gottlieb, the late guy, Bob Gottlieb, who was a great guy and a phenomenal coach too. So yeah, at that time, I decided I had BTI. It was a training institute, and now it just made sense. Like in 2001, 2002, to just have my own teams.
Yeah.
And Rich was kind of starting to, phase out of the high school stuff. He didn't really want to do that anymore. And so I had a different vision for how I wanted to run kind of a high school basketball club, and along with, the training institute side of it. And so then that's when we came up with a system, a curriculum. And I talked to a lot of college coaches, and I said, what would you do? How would you run an AAU club? And so I gathered all this information and data, and then I put it into play. And so I still think till this day we might be the only club that practices like 20 times.
Yeah.
And it's every minute is accounted for. And there's some, they're 2-hour practices, so there's 40 hours of instruction. And there's some opportunity, like if you were coaching a team, you'd be able to like implement some things, but there's very basic, non-negotiable fundamental skills and team concepts that are ingrained in our DNA of our club, and we won't modify that. So, within those 2-hour practices, like if you go this week, everybody has to learn how to post feed. Everybody has to know how to come off screens. Yeah. And so we'll spend time breaking that down before we even go into like team stuff. But we're going to teach that on a really high level with a lot of depth so that they become strong in those areas. And so, yeah, that was, it was 2001, 2002 where I was like, okay, I just now need to go with, my teams were ARC, I'll get BTI incorporated. And shortly after, I was able to also incorporate as a nonprofit. So it's, nice. A 20-year nonprofit now, 20 plus years. Wow. That's been able to place over 600 players in the 4-year colleges.
600.
So, yeah.
That's impact.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's been
That's a huge impact.
Fortunate.
I think what I hear from your story is that, man, you did the work. You sat under coaches,
Yep.
You learned the system, and then you learned on your own to become what you are. You just didn't like, I'm gonna just start an AAU team.
Right now.
That's the difference, I think, is that nowadays anybody's dad who has a little bit of money and gym space can start an AAU team.
Absolutely.
And not put the work in. There's pre-qualifications for any job that you have anywhere.
Absolutely.
You got to go through a training. But for basketball, that's non-existent right now. For soccer, you have to have a license to coach.
Yeah.
Basketball, you don't have to have a license to do
Yeah.
this. And I think that's, like you kind of touched on it earlier, is that's where our issue is coming from in this game. Is
Absolutely.
that there's no school to become this person that has so much influence of kids. It's a
Yep.
teaching job.
Yep.
Teachers got to go get a degree, and then they got to get their credentials.
Absolutely.
Where's our credentialing for basketball?
Right.
And so that's
Yeah.
man, I think that's major.
And
Yeah.
parents have to do a little research, man.
Yeah.
I think parents get caught up in, they're not thorough in their process, and the shoe companies have been a sex appeal. And so for a while, we weren't shoe company affiliated. I was with Adidas under the pumps for 4 years, and I'd merged with a Nike program for a year. So I got to see how that operated. But I felt like for me, being independent allowed me to incorporate my values.
Yeah.
And so if I have a team and, with the team is just thriving, I don't get a call from higher ups in my shoe circuit department that says, hey, I know you got a point guard that you like and a shooting guard, but we got 2 kids coming from Arizona and Vegas, and we're going to have to slide those guys in.
Yeah.
And so you got to get those guys ready for practice tomorrow and then make sure they play 90% of the game and run stuff for them. And I'm like, well, I just have my guys that I've been coaching for a year or 2 years. And so that didn't work for me.
Autonomy. You need autonomy. It's,
Yeah.
You built something, and then the shoe companies want to partner with you for something you built, but then the corporate side of it begins to take over once you do that. So that independent
Absolutely.
side, and you're still able to do the same thing without the support of that,
Right.
that circuit and stuff.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
and that's good. And then you got to see it all, right?
Yeah.
You got to see the side, the Adidas side, the Nike side.
Absolutely.
And how it was
Absolutely.
impactful. And I know you decided to do the independent route for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see the benefits of being on a Nike or Adidas circuit?
Yeah, there's definitely benefits. I think when you're choosing a circuit, first and foremost, you got to choose a program. And so, I think it's almost like choosing a conference. No, you got to choose a program. You got to choose a college program that where you can thrive and prosper. So I think the thing that for me was, we were in the mix with Nike for quite a few years, and a good friend of mine, Gary Franklin, ended up getting the Cal Supreme program, got the Nike contract, and at that time we were really in the mix and communicating. And so when I did not get it, I was pretty upset, and that lit a flame under me, and so I don't own a pair of Nike anything. So you won't see anything in the house Nike. Not an eraser, not a pencil, nothing. Like not a spoon, not a fork. Like it's got. Now there's a few Nike things that like a player plays at Harvard, he sends me a shirt or something.
Right.
And I gotta rock that because it's got Harvard or whatever school. But it was good. I got a chance to see how they operate, and they were pretty much going to dominate the industry because parents wanted their kids to get the most exposure. But what they didn't realize is really you have no exposure if you're not a developed product. You're just exposing holes in your game, and so I was like, you know what? I'm fine being who I am. Where maybe some other directors, chased that and they just wanted that stardom. I was like, I'm fine being a program that takes like the underrated guy and developing them into, a higher level player, and they're going to have grades, they're going to have high character, they're going to have discipline. And so like my player is going to get more mileage than maybe that talented guy that's entitled and not going to work hard.
Yeah.
And so that's why guys like Mie Oni, who got to the NBA, and just, a ton of other really good players, Hollis Thompson that we've had, that just were late bloomers, that just developed. And so I think there are some benefits to those circuits. And I mean, EYBL is a great circuit. They do an amazing job, but I don't think there's a better program in the country than BTI if you're talking about like all the value that we put into a player. Getting to know them, spending time on the phone. So like every player in our club, 17U, I'm on a Zoom call with their family. We get to know them. I want to know, you're a black belt in karate. Are you Mormon? Are you Jewish? Are you Muslim? Like, I want to know everything about the kid, and that allows me to build a relationship with them. And then now when they go off and get in the gym with us, they're just a little bit more connected. We're all connected, and we're all trying to go in one direction, and it's unified. So
I also think that in doing that, you are able to send them to the right college, right?
Absolutely.
And getting to know them, so they're not going someplace where the coach isn't going to like them, and it's a
Absolutely.
high major offer, you should take that. No, it's
Right.
like, hey, this is who you are. This fits your values and the type of player you are as well.
Yep.
You getting to know someone on the basketball court is extremely important. Gone
Yep.
are the days where transactional coaches thrive. It is
Yeah.
less and less. You have to
Yeah.
have that relationship.
Absolutely.
Because these kids need it. They're not as connected. They're not out playing outside and riding their bikes and
Right.
hooping
Right.
at the court with the family or Sunday dinners or whatever it is. They're
Yep.
not doing that stuff
Nah,
anymore. They're on
not
their
at all.
phones. They're playing video games, talking to somebody across the world
Yep.
on their video games. It's
Yep.
different. And so they don't understand transactional, like they don't, and this is, I'm going into it. They have parents who allow them to do and say whatever they want as well.
Right.
Where we was like, no, my mom would say no, and that was it. It didn't matter why or
Yeah.
if I had another option. So and it was very transactional. I'm
Yep.
your mom. I said no, that's it.
Right.
No, they don't even understand that. So you have to build that relationship with them so they can trust you. So
Yep.
you can walk with them and they can listen to you because everybody's going Division 1, right?
Right.
But they're not.
But they're not.
And
They're
so,
not.
no, I think that's important to grow, develop that relationship, and that's cool
Absolutely.
to hear the details. Like you can see that's what's happening, or you can feel it, but to know those details about BTI, and that makes sense why your
Right.
guys love what you do, and they get to go to that next level and enjoy it. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
you have a big imprint with guys going prep school, 5th-year prep, and getting them to a 4-year, over 60,
It's
70
close
or
to 70 now.
70
yeah.
now.
Because we got a few this year.
Tell me
Yep.
about that journey. Like, what do you see the value in going to prep school, and how did you create that bridge for those kids?
So early 2000s, we, had kids that kind of needed a year to develop and grow. And because they had good academic profiles, I didn't think junior college made sense for them. So I was starting to research that, and there was places like Northfield, Mount Hermon, and Brewster, and New Hampton School, and Phillips Exeter, all these schools on the Northeast. And we were trying to get guys in the Ivy Leagues and Patriot League schools and top academic schools. So I was like, well, all these kids on the Northeast are going to these prep schools and doing a postgraduate year. So I'm scratching my head like, well, that gives them an extra year to mature physically,
Yep.
get stronger, improve their academic profile. Socially, they're more confident, more equipped. And the Northeast boarding schools are amazing because they use what's called a Harkness method. So when you walk into the classroom, the table is like a horseshoe configuration. And so everyone has a seat, everything's discussion based. So now you got to go in and argue and debate and communicate. You can't hide. So I would see some of my players, go to these prep schools like in Exeter, and they would come out like 12 months later, and it was like, they're 30 years old now. I'm like, man, who are you? Like, you was just the dude with snot on your nose. Like, and now they mature so much, like socially and academically. And then you could see that on the court too. And, having access to facilities, to the dining hall. There's just so many benefits to that postgraduate year. And I saw just tremendous growth. So then as I had one kid go and have success, then another coach would call me and, hey, I saw your kid is over here and doing well, and we got a great program too. So then it became something where we're now sending 8 or 10 kids a year to boarding schools back east. And so those have been really good experiences. We also have some kids at IMG. We've had some kids at various programs at Impact and even Golden State up north. So it's about finding the right fit.
Right.
But I think on the Northeast, that experience is pretty transformational, and kids can really grow and just develop all aspects of their game.
So you've been in this a long time, and now you're seeing the reclass happen in middle school. Compare those reclass years. Do you see that as being a benefit when somebody reclasses in middle school versus someone who didn't reclass and then takes that prep year? Do you see a difference in development, or do you think even, you should do one or the other, or do both or what's your thoughts?
Right. I mean, there's some kids that graduate high school and they're turning 20, and so for some of those kids, that allowed them to maximize their physical development and all their skill sets, and maybe they wouldn't have gone to that amazing school if they didn't do that.
Yeah.
So I know some people are like, well, he's too old or whatever, but I think in reclass, I think you have to be strategic in what your objective is, and if it's long term versus short term. Because if you have a mature kid that can just physically dominate, and then he's playing down in age, then that could be detrimental to his development because he's going to rely on his physical attributes. He's bigger, stronger, faster, and he's just going to bully guys, and never develop skills. So you develop skills, I think, by being undermanned physically and having to outthink guys and having to be really quick with your shot. And so that's why you see like guys like CJ McCollum or whoever that was 5'4", and now they end up being really good players because if 5'4" in high school, when he's a freshman,
Right.
he had to be really skilled to be
Yeah.
on the court and get his shot off and find passing angles. And so I think parents have to be wise in saying, okay, if we're going to reclass, but I think it's a case by case situation, and there's not one. I think for some kids, that's the way to go. I think they need that extra year to mature and physically develop certain skills so that they can get to high school, have success, and then get to college. Where some kids probably it'd be better for them to just reclass, as a PG, and get that year then.
Yeah.
But it's a case by case, basis, and I always tell parents that there's no one way
Love
of
that.
getting to your objective. So
Yeah. And I think it's important, that objective, right? And when do you see kids, or if you see it, right? Everybody wants to go to the NBA, right?
Yep.
That's everybody's goal, which is awesome. Let's all strive for the highest level to get there. When do you see kids or parents actually have a realistic view of, okay, hey, I'm not a Division I player. I could be a
Right.
D3 player. I'm an whatever level player. Where do you see them have that clarity?
Yeah.
And when should they not stop dreaming about the NBA, but just be realistic about, hey, maybe I should just get to this next step and see what happens?
That's a tough one, man, because as a father, and you're a father too, like I remember when my son was like 6th grade, he had on his like his little Instagram thing. It was probably 7th grade, right before COVID hit, and it was like NBA point guard. I want to go to Stanford and be a neurosurgeon. And so I encourage that because I think you have to be unrealistic initially in your approach to move the needle in your life, to get where you're trying to get to. You have to do something that hasn't been done, and so, or else you're not gonna progress. But at the same time, like I knew that probably my son would not have the physical attributes right to play in the NBA or something, or say major Division I. So I was just trying to tell him, look, you still go for that, get as skilled as possible, and you don't know what God's going to deposit into you physically 4 years from now.
Right.
So, like a guy like Oni, that was probably like the 7th man, 6th man of viewpoint as a junior, and stayed true to the process, and then had an amazing senior year and kind of kept getting better. He was like not even thinking about the NBA. He was just trying to get to college, to the best school possible. And I saw like the summer of his senior year, I told him that he could be an NBA player because he was now outplaying guys that were supposed to be first round picks in the next year. And I'm like, this dude has the makeup for it. I think he can get there. And he had never really heard that, even though, that was his dream.
Yeah.
But he was realistic. He was like, no, I got a 3.8 viewpoint. I'm going to get a great education. I'm playing for a good high school program. If I can get to a good college, then I'll max it out. But I try to sit down, and that's why you got to get to know the family and the kid. And so when you do a Zoom, you got to have mom, dad, whoever, grandma, the barber, whoever's trying to be involved in the process, especially nowadays with kids, and the kid, and just ask him what his goals are, and then really get to know your kid And I'm telling my coaches now too that on our staff, because we have 30 teams now in our organization, so it's like, know your kid, get to know your kid. Like, spend that extra minute, like when they get into practice and, shoot the stuff with them and just talk about, hey, what'd you do last weekend? Oh, your family's from, wherever, Puerto Rico. Oh, you went to Puerto, oh, that's great. And, just get to know them. And you'll get so much out of that. And then now when you're on the court, the relationship's different. But that allows me, knowing the kid, to see where they're trying to get to, and if I can give them a realistic blueprint to getting to that next level. And if it's unrealistic, I could tell them, look, it's a long shot. It's hard to get to the NBA, but if you do all these things and you maintain this level of academic performance and you fall short of the NBA, you're still going to have really good options, because you're going to develop these skills trying to get to the NBA while managing high academic performances in the classroom. You're going to develop this amazing level of discipline, teamwork skills, communication. You got to advocate for yourself. You're going to develop all those skills, and that will let you be successful in life after basketball.
No, I love that. I love that. I think the real highlight of that is that you have to do these things to even get to this level. Are you doing those things, right? And I think that's the biggest part that the parents miss. They think, go to this tournament, get a highlight tape, and he was hooping on this kid. But there's so many other intangibles that you have to be aware of being an NBA player. Character-wise, and just discipline that it takes to do that. And you said you recognized that Mie was an NBA player his senior year. What does it take? You've had 10 pros now, or 10 guys in the NBA and probably multiple pros. What does it take? What do you see in a player where you're like, he has an opportunity to get to the NBA?
I think there's some identifiable gifts, like the athleticism and the quickness and the skill and feel. But like, even the first guy I had a chance to work with was Gilbert Arenas. So he was at Birmingham at the time. That was before he went to Grant. He was playing on our ARC team. And I remember going to see him at Grant his sophomore year. And I remember seeing him get a layup, get a steal, and then he just basically was shot out of a cannon, got to the rim, and just punched it. And I was like, wow, he has some gifts that I had never seen before, like talent and gifts. And he was unrealistic. He was like, I remember when he started, he was under-recruited, and then he started to blow up. And his first major schools, I think, were DePaul and K-State. He got the offer late from Arizona.
Right.
And his dad was like, you think he should, Arizona, that's a great opportunity. And I was a huge Lute Olson fan. And I was like, man, this would be amazing. But I was like, that might be a little unrealistic right now. Like, he could play at DePaul. But Gilbert was unrealistic. Gilbert was like, nah, I'm the greatest player in the world. I'm going to Arizona. He started as a freshman, got drafted, shortly after his sophomore year, and just, phenomenal. Phenomenal talent. So
you can just see it and feel it, right? I always we had Joe Abunassar was on From Impact, and he's the same thing. He's been around this so long, and he made a point that if you can't see somebody in the NBA who looks or does stuff like you, like, that's what you have to see first. Like, who do you play like? Who can you model your game after to fit that role in the NBA? Right? And so I think that's an important thing. But I think with yours, like this, you can just see it. I saw Zaire his sophomore year. And he pulled up at the elbow. Like, it was a layup. It was his shot. And I'm like, oh, he's a pro. It was like, you could just see how he pulled up at 6. I was probably at 6'5" then. Right? Not
about
even
110 pounds.
Right.
It's
like, oh, he's a pro. Like, this is crazy. You can see it. So, and I say that to tell families this, is that those are a very special 450 people in that NBA. Not saying that your kid cannot get there. But you, first off, as a parent, have to put the discipline and work ethic in that kid at an early age, so he can get there. God has deposited something into those people. They're just freak athletes. And then help them understand what that takes. Just like you're a doctor, a lawyer, a business owner, whatever you are, you had to work to get there.
Right.
Show
right.
them that they have to do that work to even be considered to be in that realm.
Yep.
And
Yep.
now let's talk about the NBA because you'll see it. We'll know. The NBA is not skipping over people who should be in the NBA.
No,
That
no,
doesn't make sense.
No.
It doesn't
No.
make sense. So,
And those last spots, as you know, are just, it's hard, you know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guys that can fit those last spots. There's
Right.
a lot of guys that could be number 8 to 15 in the NBA.
yep.
You know, then it comes down to character and you
Yes.
fit that organization. But I knew Zaire was on that path. I didn't know how tall he was going to get. But when I first saw him in 7th grade, we had a kid, Hollis Thompson, that played at Loyola and Georgetown and played like 5 or 6 years in the NBA. And Hollis was like a 6'7" wing. And when I saw Zaire, I was like, oh man, this is the second coming of Hollis Thompson. And but obviously his game just expanded. He got to 6'9", and his ball skills were so advanced. So yeah, probably around 9th grade, I was like, if he's 6'4", 6'5", right now, and he gets another couple inches,
That's a wrap.
he's gonna be a really good player, and he's gonna play professionally for a long time. That I do know. But I would say the most important skills, hands down, after you see talent, is discipline. I think over 30 years, you just got to move past, passion and get into discipline. If you're not disciplined, eventually you'll get tripped up by someone that does have it, even if they're less talented or not as good, and they're going to take that spot. So I would say if a kid's not disciplined, we have some kids that are talented, and they're just not disciplined. And we have some kids that, like Ben Eisendreth, I use him as an example. Maybe in my 25, 30 years, the most disciplined student athlete I've ever had. Every AAU event, he identified gyms in the region, in the area, whether it's a Jewish center, a YMCA, an outdoor, backyard in someone's house. He had gym time allocated. He had the schedule. He would check the schedule. Okay, we're playing at 5. Okay, I'm going to do shoot around here at 1.
Wow.
It gives me enough time. Yeah, the first time I was coaching his team, Thomas Blunt was coaching for us. And Thomas had a baby on the way, and I was like, oh man, don't get divorced right now. You better be there. I was like, man, be there for the baby. I don't want no wife throwing some pots and pans at me at an AAU game. But so I'm filling in for his team. I'm walking out of the hotel. We're leaving for the game at 9 o'clock. And I see, and I'm downstairs, it's like 7:45. So I see Ben Eisendreth coming out of a Uber, and I'm like, oh man, he was at the strip club, or he was at
out here wild.
I'm like, he's out in the strip just all night, and he's got his little bag. He comes out the Uber, and he's like, what's up, coach? He's soaking wet, and I was like, scratching my head. He was like, yeah, I just did my little workout. I'm gonna go get some food and shower, and then get in my uniform.
Man.
And so when I saw that, I was like, if he would have told me that day, I'm trying to make it to the NBA, I would have said, you know what, you got a shot, go after it, boy. And then his goal was to play in the Ivy League. A lot of people didn't think he can get there, and he had some great choices, and now he's going to be a freshman at Harvard next year.
Wow. So you went to prep school for a year?
He's at South Kent with Rafael Chilius, was great prep school.
That's where Darrell Wright went, right?
Yeah. Yep. And so he's getting a great year there. He'll be able to matriculate into Harvard. And,
Wow.
and so when I talk about discipline, there wasn't an AAU tournament where he didn't identify a gym and get himself ready to play every game. So he would always do a shoot around, and if you have those kind of habits, he'll accomplish anything in life because he's just, you just won't beat him because he's just so wired and so disciplined to get what he wants, and obviously his talent will take him only as far, but the discipline will push him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's an amazing story. I love to hear stuff like that, man. To get it out the mud. To do it on your own, and he's taking an Uber. He ain't even waiting for a ride or nothing. He probably could have asked you for a ride. You probably would have took him. But no, he's like, nope, I'm self-started.
I think his parents weren't, at the trip.
Yeah.
So he's being independent. This is like 15 years old. He's 15U.
Oh,
So
this is his
he's,
freshman year. That's his
yeah,
freshman
this
year.
is not even 17U, 18U. This is 15U. He's doing it on his own. Didn't have to
That's
tell him,
amazing.
but no, he's on the, he's got that kind of Kobe Bryant type.
That Mamba mentality.
Yeah, that he's locked in and his goals are tattooed on his chest,
Yeah,
and he's locked in. He ain't wavering.
that's the way to be.
Yeah,
That's the way to be. So I want to discuss, because now you guys are on the Puma circuit.
yeah,
Before that, you were independent for a few years here, right?
yeah, yeah.
What is it
Majority of the
like
time.
being on the independent circuit, and what would you tell the people who are on the independent circuit? Because you did it so well at a high level for so long. What advice would you give those people
Oh, that's
on the
it's a
independent
great
circle?
question. I love being independent because I felt like it gave us the flexibility to go anywhere we wanted. But then what happened was they created these circuits, right, where now you can't get into the Nike event. So my thing was, well, we got to play them to beat them so that my guys can become relevant. So then we would have events like the Las Vegas Fab 48.
Yeah.
So that's where we can get down. And and I, the director, Gary Charles, and that time Dinos Trigonis, I was like, I want the toughest pool. I want the best players in the country. We got to play them. And so they would honor that a lot of times, and that gave us an opportunity to really get busy in that stage where you had Nike and Adidas teams, and then Under Armour was starting to move their way up. They haven't been quite as good the last 3-4 years, but during that time they were starting to get really
Right.
good players too, and so that was a great platform. So I would say if you're an independent club, you got to find a way to play the best teams possible and against the best prospects. You better be ready for that, though. You better be ready for
Right.
that smoke.
Yeah.
But I felt like we had personnel, we had guys that were tough enough, smart enough, and we're going to play a better brand of basketball. So I always convinced my guys, we're going to be better on the court 5-on-5. They ain't going to be better. Like, we'll play against Dwight Howard, Derrick Rose, whoever, all these guys that are amazing talent, but they ain't going to be better 5-on-5 than us.
Gotcha.
On both ends of the floor. And then we're going to get back in transition. There was always like a couple key things. You just don't let people score in transition, so you can't turn it over, and you got to sprint back and build the wall. And so we got good at that. And so that's why I could take like Ivy guys
Yep.
and go be in a game against Atlanta Celtics or, some of the top teams in the country and knock them off. So I think you got to have a really good developmental curriculum and
Yep.
system. Obviously, you got to get good players, so that you can attract colleges. And I did it because I knew if I couldn't get the guy going to Kansas or UCLA, well, I'll get the guy that can go to Harvard or Princeton or
Yep.
Columbia or,
Still Division One.
still Division One. And even the guys that would go to like Williams or MIT or Tufts or,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, like a D3 that got a chip on his shoulder and can still play, but maybe he was just not a 6'8" wing or stretch four. He
Right.
might have been 6'5", but he might have been a better player, like in a team setting. So we were able to have success there. So I would say you gotta play good people, so that you can have that film and leverage that and beat and play well against good people. You got to have a really good curriculum to develop players, because you're not going to have maybe per se the best talent.
Yes.
And I think for us, like now being in this Puma circuit, Puma came in and was very enthusiastic about building a circuit. It's called the Pro 16 Next Circuit, which we were on last year, and it was under New Balance. But Puma's come in with this like aggressive energy where they're like, we want to be the premier circuit in the country for grassroots basketball. I mean, they are like, the CEO of Pro 16, Matt Reynolds, and the VP at Puma, they're just all in. So I think they're doing a lot of things that are really unique that I didn't see at EYBL and even in Adidas when I was under the pumps, that are really unique, that will allow, I think, the teams in our circuit to grow. There's tremendous synergy too within the circuit, which is really important. And they're laying down platforms and saying, hey, we're going to hold you accountable to this standard. And so that I didn't
Coaches have
see.
to have certifications a little better or something
Absolutely.
like that. Yeah.
They're auditing your play.
Wow.
They're on it. And
Love it.
if you're not playing at a certain level, they're wanting to know why, and they're giving you feedback on what's going on, not just, hey, you know what, you didn't have a top 50 guy. See you later. We're not gonna re-up your contract, which I think that was one of the reasons why with Nike, it was like, hey, you got to have a big time guy. We would have those guys develop late, but never had them early. So that was, that was unfortunate.
Let me ask this. So, some clarity for the Pro 16 circuit so we can understand it all. People have all these questions about it, I think,
Yep,
and you're the person to clear it up. So, are they selective about the teams that they bring in? I hear you saying that.
absolutely.
So, teams have to apply. Do they search teams out? What is that process
Yeah,
like?
they searched teams out, and they knew that our organization. Like that was the thing I thought with, like even with Adidas when the pumps were starting to kind of get out of it. I thought we were one of the most stable organizations out west. Like if you said stability, like we always have Division 1 kids or recruitable kids, and then we'll have some Division 2 and Division 3. We're always going to play good basketball. Coaches are going to come and evaluate our guys. We're so proactive in contacting schools. I mean, I would spend, like, if we were going to play at 9 a.m., I would text messages coaches at 7 a.m. and making sure they were coming to our game. Like, I would spend an hour before that 9 a.m. game, and I'd be texting dudes like, come to our game. We're playing at 9 a.m. court 6. That was when we were a lot smaller,
Right.
but now with social media, it's a lot easier. But that's the kind of grind I used to do to make sure we got these guys, in the
Yeah.
gym to see us play. So it's for us now with Pro 16, I think you're going to see a circuit that is going to be well managed. Teams are going to be well coached. They're going to have players. Last year we had 14 top 125 players.
Wow.
So not the amount of Nike or Adidas. Obviously Nike had the most, but there was enough good players to where good players can feel like there was really good competition. But I did feel like the brand of basketball was at a higher level than the other two circuits in terms of style of play. And like we would get in games and we were like, and we're running stuff. We got like counters and we've got, 10, 12 plays. And these teams have scouted and have prepped. It was almost like being in like a mission league game and you like, everybody knows what they're doing and they're just like trying to run X and they're yelling X. And we were like, man, these dudes are really, they're serious. And so the organizations in that circuit are well coached and just well ran. And so I think they're held to a high standard. And there's still a lot of talent, in that circuit,
No, absolutely. That's good to know. And then do the teams get the shoes? Do they get the gear? And
Yeah.
what's that look like? There was, oh, it's not really a circuit. You have to buy a care package. Not that all this matters, but just
Right.
for clarity, how does that all
Right.
work?
So with the top teams, they are. So like last year, they had in the Pro 16s, it was New Balance. And so they partnered with New Balance. This year, Puma's is like 100% in. So players will get, gear and, multiple pairs of shoes and,
Nice.
athletic
swag.
apparel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Things that they want. I was always like, I would fundraise as a nonprofit and I would have the capital to be able to do that. But I would usually invest in coaches, extra practices.
Yeah.
So instead of like, a typical EYBL team maybe practicing 8 times or something, we were practicing 20. So we're paying extra for gym and coaches have to be compensated for those practice times, right? Because it's their time. So I invested in that versus saying, okay, let me just go buy 30 pairs of sneakers because I could have done that too,
Right.
But I felt like long-term development, the kids that I had in my program valued quality coaching, instruction, more than say some gear. But Puma's packages and their support is very enthusiastic right now. And so our top 3 teams at the Pro 16 level, they'll get a lot of extra apparel and things like that. But I'm big on parity for my club, so I always was like, everybody's got to have the same uniform.
Yes.
And I don't want like one team having a special uniform or, Like I feel like if it's our team with like high academic D3 players, those guys are just as important as our team with, guys that are going off to, UCLA or Duke or Kansas or Kentucky or whatever school, Virginia. So for us, I want parity, so I always try to structure it that way too.
Yeah,
So you won't see even if it's our top team, them have like 30 items and the other teams have 2. So I'm gonna always kind of
balance it.
balance it. Yeah.
No, I love that. I think that's what makes your program so special, man. You were looking out for everybody in your program at the level they're at and what you're doing with it. And that's how basketball should be. We're all in this to help kids and to, you've been doing it so long, you don't have to raise the value of yourself at this point. You
I
can
appreciate that.
probably get and go for any job that you wanted or whatever, and you kind of flip the script if you wanted to. But this is, you've built it to be at this place. I'm sure you didn't imagine this at 21 when you first started that your program would be where it's at.
Right.
And it just keeps getting better, it seems like,
I appreciate
through
that.
all that. So
Yeah.
appreciate you being true to this and doing it for the right reasons.
Oh, yeah.
What can we expect this spring with, let's just talk about your 17U team for the Pro 16. You guys are stacked.
We've got a really good group. We had our 3 kids last year, Nick Kamenia, who I think is a special talent, and also Isaiah Johnson, who's at Campbell Hall, and Peyton White. They played together last year, and they played 17s. And so we cultivated, a little chemistry between those 3 guys, and then we were able to also add some guys. And most recently, now we picked up a kid, Xavier Stanton, who's a 7'1" athletic center. He's probably, he's a kid that every circuit wanted because he's got NBA level potential for sure, and he has that type of athletic talent and size and length. And so we were able to get him partly because I think the family values and who we are as people aligned with them. And so they felt like this is a great circuit. He's going to thrive here. He's going to be coached. I mean, we do a great job with bigger guys, and we have actually a post clinic now that we have on Friday nights. So Val Camini will be directing that, and so he'll get reps in that, and we'll get a chance to develop and further his skills. So we started with those 4 guys, and then we have a couple guys in the program that have come through, like Isaiah Carroll at Harvard Westlake, and he's a guy that's been in our program for 3 years. So we like to show that we develop guys that come 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and then end up becoming a really, really good player, not just a guy that we might have gotten as a junior or senior that played for other people. But we're still piecing the team together. We have 3 or 4 more selections that we're evaluating right now. We had our first evaluation last week. So we've had 324 kids in the gym being evaluated. So over 100 kids at 15U, 16U, and 17U at each age group. And so now we're sorting through that, talking to high school coaches. We get recommendations from whether it's people like yourself or, coaches and scouts and different people that recommend our program. And so we try to ask them about their character, and, we always ask about their grades because that reflects on who they are as people as well.
Talk about that. Why do their grades reflect on who they are as people? That's important.
Well, I think if they're a good student, now not everyone's going to be like a 4.5 or whatever, but if they're invested in their academics, then they've kind of come to realization that they're not going to play basketball forever, and improving their academic profile and getting as smart as possible and as intelligent as possible and learning how to learn, which is an important skill, allows them to have a life after basketball.
Yeah.
And now they can leverage the experiences that they have, like say if they go play at whatever, UCLA or Cal State Bakersfield or Biola, wherever they play at, now they can use their intellect, their people skills to help leverage that into life after basketball.
Yeah.
Maybe working for the front office of an NBA team, maybe they're an athletic director at a university, whatever. But I think that's critically important, So yeah, we try to hammer that in. So if a kid has a good academic profile, we know we can market them to a lot more schools. So now he's got a higher credit score, right? So now you can send this stuff out to every lender It kind of that
Yeah.
concept. And so not only that, but we know we're probably going to get the ability to teach him more. Like we can add layers to our team play because now we got guys, with good academic capacity. So now we can run some actions. We can add some layers to our offense. We can throw something in late that maybe you wouldn't be able to. I mean, we've had guys that couldn't remember a play after 20 practices, and they still could kind of not, you know what I mean?
Right.
We've all had coach guys like that. There's
For
just,
sure.
and you have to kind of say, okay, just simplify things for a kid like that. But we're attracted to guys with IQ and feel and love to share the ball. So like when we get like 5 or 6 guys like that together, and they have some talent too, then it's on.
Yeah.
Then it's on. Yeah.
Absolutely. Man, no, that's awesome, man. So we're gonna move to the next segment of our show. Okay,
right.
it's my Rushmore. It's gonna be your top 4. You've been in this game for a long time. Your top 4 players that you played against in AAU.
Whew. That I've coached against.
That you coached against. Yeah.
I've seen a ton of them in 26 years, but took the floor against them. I would say Derrick Rose was absolutely fastest, strongest. He was like Mike Tyson on roller skates. Just like there was no way to stay in front of him. You couldn't cut him off. He could play above the rim. He had vision. He could finish. I mean, he was just absolute, unbelievable guard.
How'd you coach against him?
Try to sprint back to the 3-point line, and then just build a wall and be in the gaps. But he just created gaps.
He created his own.
Just the gap could be the size of, like he could have been like a bank robber. Like the gaps could be so tiny, and he just before you knew it, he was through.
Right.
And just one guy not being in help, like a split second late, he was gone, and he was in the lane, dunk, lob. I mean, he was just. And in transition, he was just so fast with the ball that,
that movie's playing in your mind right now. You can remember very vividly,
huh? Yeah, absolutely.
The D-Rose show.
Absolutely, man.
Awesome. Who else you got?
I would say Kevin Love was really tough. Pat Barrett had a SCA team that had Brandon Jennings. He had Daniel Hackett. He had Taj Gibson. I mean, they were loaded.
Man.
Some people think that's the greatest AAU team of all time. And it was probably the best AAU team I've seen. And we're in that game, but I remember Kevin Love was just so physically strong. Like anything, any rebound in his area he can play through contact. But the thing that stood out to me the most was his outlets. And he's still a great NBA, even at the right now, passer. But I remember being on the baseline, kind of arguing with an official. He gets kind of a long rebound at the short corner, and he kind of like on his heels. He just cocks back, he throws an outlet pass, and it was like a missile. And it just basically, it went by like probably 2 feet from my face and just gave me a clean fade. You know what I mean? It was like all the wind, and it was a missile. Like if somebody doesn't have their hands ready, it'd just break your wrist. And then Taj Gibson caught it and just dunked it. And I was like, wow, that's elite level. That's elite level. Probably the other one, when I started with ARC, that was really just an amazing specimen. He was still, I think, the next thing to LeBron was Shea Cotton. And I know he had some injuries and his career didn't quite resonate at the NBA level. But his physical attributes, there was nobody that could get from the wing. I mean, only LeBron that can get from the wing to the rim within like 0.7 seconds with that amount of force, power, explosiveness. I mean, he was a Mack truck, and there was no way to cut him off. His shoulders were just, massive. And he was so explosive, and he was trying to take your head off. He was trying to dunk everything. Right. So he was the best high school player, I think, offensively I ever saw at the high school level.
Wow.
Just absolute athletic freak and so talented. He should have been an NBA.
Yeah.
But I think what happened was all the physical attributes, he was able to rely on those in 7th, 8th, 9th. He was even, he was dunking on dudes in 7th grade.
Right.
Which, when you're dunking everything, what I've learned over the years is it doesn't allow touch. So like now we start telling our big guys not to dunk. Like in certain drills, you're not allowed to dunk. So now you could use your left hand, right hand
Absolutely.
on both sides of the basket and develop soft touch. Because dunking, you're just just punching it. But he was scary, man. He was scary. So I would say those three, and I'd have to go like Dwight Howard. I remember we were in Houston and we were playing against Atlanta Celtics, and we were in that game. I think we lost in overtime, and we played him a couple times in that stretch. And I mean, he was just unbelievable. I mean, you could have a layup at the rim, and he could be at the 3-point line, and just he could go meet it at the top of the square. Like he'd get there so quick, and he was so long, and obviously he was a great NBA defender, all defensive team.
Still, it baffles me how he's not top 75. It's so crazy.
Yeah,
man,
I think
that man was ridiculous.
Yeah,
his first 10 years in the league. Just,
oh yeah, I think he got some bad whatever press or whatever on maybe his character.
Talking about basketball.
Yeah,
man.
but basketball, yeah. There was a stretch there. He was one of the best players in the NBA, top 3 or 4.
Yeah.
But I would say at the high school level, he was unbelievable defensively. He could recover, he could block a shot, and like someone else get it, you kick it out, someone drives it, he blocked that one. He would block like 3, 4 in one possession. It was unbelievable. It was such a amazing timing and athleticism.
Man,
so
amazing. That's an amazing Rushmore. I have not coached AAU ever, and so I usually have a 4.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I haven't coached AAU in high school. I'm staying away from it for as long as possible.
Gotcha.
Wait till my kids get older.
Yep.
So I don't have a 4.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm gonna just let that live, because those are 4 really good players to have coached against. Yeah, man. It's funny because you can still see yourself, like you can see you visualizing it.
Yeah.
Like it's
sweating.
today.
Just polo soaked, man. I'm clipboard. I'm shaking. I'm like,
what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Wall up or something like what?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Our next segment is Fix the Net. All right. So a misconception about Robert Icart that you want to make clear, your organization, that you want to make clear and fix the net about.
I would say, do I put it through first?
No, say it, and then we'll fix it when you clear it up.
Okay, I got you. I would say the perception is BTI has been primarily a club for high academic kids that want to go off to play in the Ivy League, or the guy that wants to go to MIT and hoop and be a doctor. While we do service those kids, and we've had 35 kids go to the Ivy League, we've also had 10 go to the NBA. We have 3 in the NFL, and we've sent a high amount of kids to Pac-12 schools. We have 29 of the Pac-12, a bunch of schools on the East Coast that are in the ACC and the Big East and Big Ten. So I think the perception is that we only can cater to one type of kid, the high academic performer that wants to go to Ivy League. But actually, we're the only club in the country, I think, that can do it on all levels. We do have 17 attorneys or kids in law school, 8 medical doctors or currently in medical school, and 60 plus athletes with MBAs or master's degrees. But we also have 10 guys that made it to the NBA as well over the time that I was able to coach and impact their life. So I think we can get it done on all levels.
Like that.
So
accommodate all situations.
Absolutely.
So BTI is high academic, but not just high academic.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
They are for basketball training institute.
Yep.
Cover the whole ground.
Yep.
Absolutely. Fix the net. My brother. Awesome. So last segment of the show, we flip the script.
Yep.
This is your show now. 2 questions for me. You're the interviewer. What you got?
Just anything about?
Anything in general. It could be life, anything. Anything. It doesn't have to be basketball.
I would say, how would you, this is going to be something you're going to have to deal with. How would you coach your son coming up here? How are you preparing him for that? And dealing and navigating that space?
Absolutely. So my son's 2 right now, about to be 3 in April, right? So I have time.
You got
right
time.
now I'm preparing him. I have a basketball in the car. He just
Okay.
holds it in his
Okay.
hands, and I keep him in the gym as much as possible so he can
Okay.
be around the game. I want it to be his choice.
Yeah.
I've just learned from a lot of people, like the environment you grow up in is what they're just going to naturally get accustomed to, right?
Yeah.
And so I want him
Yeah.
to be very comfortable in the gym and very comfortable with a basketball in his hands. He also
Yeah.
does pull-ups
Okay.
in our hallway,
Okay.
little baby pull-ups.
You got him.
And so,
Before you eat the baby food, you got to do 2
yes.
pull-ups. I got
And
you.
I'm actually going to make sure he does other sports. I want
Yep.
him to do some
Yep.
martial arts, swimming,
Yep.
soccer, and what's my last one? Those 3.
Yep.
I think. Oh, and track and field. There you go.
Yep.
I'll make sure he does those on
great.
his way to getting to middle school, and
Yep.
then that's when he's still going to play other sports, but that's when I believe most kids are okay with their dad teaching them something and not feeling judged about it.
Right.
Is that
Right.
10-year-old like, hey, oh, my dad is a trainer. I
Right.
should work out with him, right?
Right. Right.
And so I want that to be that part of the relationship where it's like, hey, dad, come work me out.
Yep.
I don't want to have to go and just force him to do it. I will force him to be athletic and play a sport.
Right.
You have
Yeah.
a commitment to being in shape and being
Right.
healthy. I'm
Right.
forcing that on the lifestyle.
Right.
Basketball, not so much. And then
Yeah.
when he gets to middle school, turn it up a little bit and have him with other people I trust.
Yep.
And just be his dad is what's most important.
Yep. Yep.
And so being able to be around all these parents, I've had Core for 10 years now.
Yeah.
And so being around all these
Seen it
parents
all.
who are NBA kids, who are attorneys kids, whatever it is, that's how I seen success happen. Is they went like this. They released their kid to the game, even if they know they could teach them. Waited till they were old enough and had a teacher mentor relationship with
Right.
their kid when they hit those teenage years. I think parents miss the mark on that. Is that
Yep.
they want to fix them and tell them what to do. At some point, you're going to have to just guide them. They have to make their own mistakes.
Right.
And so that's where I'm at. Like when they turn 12, 13, hey, I've given you the rules for life. Now go out. I'll be here to catch you when you fall.
Yep.
For at least the next 6 years. I'll probably catch you for your whole life because you're going to be my kid. But kind of release them to the game and put them around people I trust. And
Yep.
then hopefully there's people I can trust. Because if there's nobody I can trust, then I got to coach them.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
No,
but
absolutely.
I think that's the
Yeah.
thing, is just making him an athlete. Like we talked about,
Yeah.
man, being a pro in this. So I've said this before. The first thing when I had my son, I held him. I said, thank God, thank you for a healthy birth. And
Oh, yeah.
I had a good prayer. And I was like, I looked him in his eyes and told him, I was like, you're going to be an all-star NBA point guard. that definitely was my, it's a dream.
Right.
But I would
Right.
never force that on him.
Right.
But I'm
Right.
going to do everything in my power to help guide him there.
Right.
Why wouldn't I, when I have the resources and the knowledge
Yeah.
to get him to a place like that, if that's
Right.
what he wants.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
Absolutely, man. No, it's
y'all parents is doing it wrong if you ain't doing it like me. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. No, but that's how I would do it. Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Yep. So, second question.
Yeah.
2 questions.
Oh, 2. Man. Oh, I got another one here. What high school will he go to?
Oh, man.
I'm just messing with you.
So if I had to choose today,
yeah.
I don't mind answering that. Harvard Westlake.
Okay. Okay.
Man, I'm a Rebobo fan, man. I
Yeah.
love the way he operates and how
Yeah.
he does stuff from a basketball perspective.
Yeah.
So,
No, he does a great job.
and then hopefully he's ready for the academics over there. That's the one
Yeah.
thing. But so
Yeah.
hopefully he's prepared for all that. But he's kind of smart. So,
Yeah.
all right, a real question though, because that
Yeah.
was a side question. Real question.
What are your hobbies outside of? Because most people don't know this. Like my hobby was salsa dancing.
Oh, wow.
I used to go salsa dancing like 5 days a week.
Oh man.
Like I used to do my basketball stuff, get home, shower, eat, man. And
this is when you practice your Denzel Washington stuff.
Oh yeah, it was on, man. It was on.
That's dope.
Yeah, that was like in my late 20s, and so people will be like, "What? You salsa dance?" So what is another hobby of yours? Obviously, basketball is a big passion. If you're not doing hoop, what are you doing?
I have 2, probably marriage counseling. So me and my wife do marriage counseling. I've
Excellent,
officiated a wedding. I officiated Thomas's wedding. Thomas Blunt.
Seriously?
Thomas Blunt, Olin Simplest. No, I officiate weddings. Yeah, so I'm a
Okay.
wedding officiant, a marriage counselor. Man, I love marriage. Me and my wife are a good duo. She's the quiet but wise words, and
Okay.
I'm just a talker, and we we do it from a biblical perspective. And so,
Excellent,
yeah, so anybody, wants to have marriage counseling, holla at me. And then the thing that I do, I play spades, man.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Man, I haven't been able to play as much since I've had kids.
Right.
But I'm gonna get that going. I love spades.
You love spades.
I am highly competitive. I will play for money.
Man.
Like
Okay.
I play spades.
Oh, that's great.
So
man.
you might know this guy. What's Mr. Jackson's first? Dwayne Jackson. He used to be with the Atlanta Celtics
Oh,
back in the day.
wait a minute. Dwayne Jackson?
Yep, from Atlanta.
So you play with him?
So my college, the summer before I went to college,
Okay.
I'm friends with his son, Julian.
Okay.
And so we went to go visit him. It's when he had, who was on that team? Man, they had a crazy stacked team. Alpha Amino. They had a bunch of dudes. And so we went down there for them to go to AU Nationals. We were in high school. So we were just going down to hang out.
Okay.
That's where I learned how to play spades.
Wow.
And I was his partner. And my two homeboys were partners. This is my first time ever really playing.
Yeah.
Man, I was getting smacked. And Dwayne was on my head about just like, man, what are you doing, young fella? And so from that point on, I'm like, all right, I got to get good at this. I never want to be talked to like this about spades. So all of college, man, we used to play for water.
Really?
We used to get gallons of water. If you lost, you had to drink a gallon of water. Oh, yeah, it wasn't fun. Yeah.
Damn.
But
that's
crazy.
crazy.
And then that's it, man. I love spades though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
That's
So, man, thank you, man. Been amazing, man. Your insight, and I know you have so many more stories and things to tell, and so we just appreciate you being on the show and blessing us with the knowledge
My
you
pleasure,
have.
man.
We have a 24-second shot clock. That's your camera there. Let the people know where they can find you and any message that you have for them.
I think you can find us at www.btihoops.com. And if you're looking for a place where your son, and now we have a girls program as well, or daughter want to develop and grow to be the best student athlete that they can be, then I think we're hands down the #1 program in the country.
Love it. Love it, man. Thank you.
All right, man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.